Perhaps you've been running for a while and perhaps you are not seeing the advancement, the improvement that you are hoping for. In this video, we're going to be talking about 8 factors that could be the reason why you're not improving with your running. Let's get into it. Now these 8 reasons why your running might not be improving came from an article I found on sportcoaching.co.uk, and of course I will link to that article in the show notes below. And this is also the weekly running and training vlog, where the main purpose of this video is for you to tell me about your week of running. I want to hear about your successes, and I definitely want to hear about those setbacks. And if you are watching this on the day that this video releases, I am supposed to be running the Boston Marathon. So keep your fingers crossed for me that everything goes according to plan, and hopefully there'll be a race video at the end of this week. And at the end of this video, I will be giving you my taper week, my final week before the Boston Marathon training plan, like everything I ran that week, and it wasn't much. Serious about the taper this time. But the first reason that your running might not be improving is a lack of consistency. And it almost seems cliche because we're always talking about consistency being the secret sauce of running, but it's true. If you're not improving, it could be because you're not consistent. So how it's supposed to work, we're supposed to run, we're supposed to do certain things. If we do different types of exercises and we're trying to get stronger, it's the same thing with running. If we do it, our body adapts to that and kind of gets stronger. If you skip runs, if you change your workout, if you take a long time off in between running, your body is just not going to get stronger. It's not going to adapt to the running that you've been doing. So obviously you're not going to get better. I mean, this is really the simplest thing. Consistency is key. And if you keep at anything, especially running, you will get better at it just by doing it more often. Remember that 10,000 hour rule? You can become a master of anything if you do it for 10,000 hours. Well, running is no different. Oh, before we move on to the other 7 reasons why your running might not be improving, I want you to think about if any of these reasons have actually applied to you. Have you had a lack of consistency? Have you done any of the things that we're going to talk about? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and of course, if you like talking about running, why don't you give this video a thumbs up? It's greatly appreciated on my end, and it makes the video look good for YouTube, which also helps me out. All right, the second reason why your running is not improving is overtraining. And I don't mean the technical term of overtraining where you become totally overly fatigued and you just can't, you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning, you don't feel like doing anything. Well, I do mean that, but I also mean just doing too much. Just as being consistent is key if we want to see improvement, there's also the other end of that spectrum when we can do too much. So it's where we want to do enough to trigger those adaptations. We don't want to do too much where we stop those adaptations from taking place. Or worst of all, we get an injury and then we're taking a long break from running and we're losing our consistency. Just remember the terrible twos: too much, too soon, too fast. Just keep away from those things. Don't do too much. Don't do too much too soon, and don't do too much fast running. And that's probably a good recipe for success. Just remember that overtraining, if you are already into running, it's a pretty easy trap to fall into because you start seeing some big gains and then all of a sudden either you're injured, you're burnt out, and with those things come a decrease in running performance. So if you are running a lot and you're logging those workouts and your performance is starting to decrease, it could be a first sign that you are overtraining. Just keep an eye on it. The third reason why your running might not be improving is poor running form. Now, look, yes, there are a lot of ways that we can have poor running form. And in a nutshell, if we have poor running form, we're probably going to have poor running efficiency. So the article points out that overstriding is poor running form. And when you do overstride, you are increasing the impact forces on your body, which could lead to running injury. But let's say it doesn't lead to running injury. You're not running as efficiently as you could, so your performance will not increase. Other indicators of poor running form are if you're kind of hunched over when you're running, you know, kind of like this, or if you're doing too much arm swing, or your arm swing is crossing your body like this, or not enough arm swing at all. That can all affect your running form. Those examples of poor running form is definitely going to affect your running efficiency, and that poor running efficiency is going to hold you back from progressing as a runner. The fourth reason that you might not be improving as a runner is poor nutrition. Now, I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not here to give advice, but if you eat bad, you're probably going to run bad. Now, you might not notice it immediately, but if you are consistently eating bad, there it is again, consistency, you're probably going to notice a decrease in your running economy, perhaps if you're gaining weight, or you just don't have the energy to go out and take care of business, to knock out your plan. You may notice that you just don't have the endurance to continue and finish your run. You may feel like you are not recovering after your run, like you out for an easy run and you're just exhausted after, or you're starting to notice excessive fatigue. And I do say excessive fatigue because when you're out there running, let's say you're training for a race, look, it's likely you are going to get tired. That's totally normal. But once you realize what your baseline is, your baseline of fatigue, and you start noticing that you're getting more fatigued, probably a good idea that you look at your nutrition. If for no other reason, that perhaps you'll just notice something that's an easy change. And as I already said, I'm not going to make any dietary recommendations. I think everybody is different and everybody can kind of find success with whatever they choose to eat. But ultimately, I think being aware of what you're eating is pretty key. If you know what you're putting into your body and you know what you're doing, it should be pretty self-leveling. Fifth reason you're not improving as a runner could be lack of sleep. Look, sleep is pretty important. Sleep is where all your work kind of goes in and soaks into your body and comes out stronger the other side, right? Sleep is where the magic happens. Lack of sleep is going to result in fatigue, lack of focus, and a decrease in your running efficiency. Like if you're super tired, you might find yourself hunched over a little more because you're just too tired to straighten up and run properly. Try and get some sleep. The article says between 7 and 8 hours. I know if I'm left to my own devices, I definitely sleep up to around the 9-hour mark. But when I'm working and I have to set an alarm and I only get 6 hours sleep, I definitely notice a difference in my running. Like I don't feel like running as much. What about you? What is the minimum that you can sleep and still feel good? The sixth reason that you might not be improving as a runner is that you have inconsistent training intensities. And this really is just like being consistent overall with your running. Now we all know your training should be well balanced. You need to do a variety of runs in order to progress and meet your potential. So we are talking easy and recovery runs. We're talking about tempo runs. We're talking about intervals. If you are looking to improve, if you're looking to be the best that you can be, you're probably going to have to do all of those types of runs on a regular or consistent basis. And once again, if you're not consistent with that training intensity, your body's not going to have enough time to adapt or have too much time and it disadapts. Disadapts isn't a word. Unadapts. Regresses to your previous state of unadaptation. Gosh, that's wordy. Anyway, be consistent and be consistent with your training intensities and you'll go far. The seventh reason you're not improving as a runner could be mental blocks. Now we all know running is not just a physical activity. And look, if you are just getting started in running, I know it seems nothing but a physical activity. It's hard to go out there when your heart rate is through the roof and it just feels horrible. Look, I totally get it. My first piece of advice is slow down if your heart rate is through the roof. But second of all, once you start running for a while, you realize that running is a lot more of a mental game. And if your mental game isn't on point, you are not going to progress to your potential. Now, let's just talk about negative thoughts. If you don't believe that you can do it, you won't do it. Where your mind goes, your body follows. So I want you to believe in your running ability. I want you to believe in your potential as a runner and know that if you put in the work, you will progress. Now, when we're talking about mental blocks, I'm not talking about motivation. I don't want you to not run because you're not motivated. Ultimately, most of us are not motivated to get out the door immediately. That motivation follows action. So when you start running, that motivation will build and you'll actually feel like running. So don't think that having a mental block is anything to do with a lack of motivation. A lack of motivation is totally normal. You can get over that and the other side is so much better. So I want you to work on your mental game. This is especially important when you're doing harder workouts like tempo runs where you're right there on that threshold, especially when you're racing and you're holding a very hard pace for an extended amount of time. There are mantras, there are other things that you can focus on to keep your mental game in check, and you will definitely have a better time and be a better runner because of that. And finally, the eighth reason that you might not be improving as a runner is, and this is a broad one, external factors. External factors are like the weather. So perhaps if you live in a cold climate or you're in the winter or the summer, depending on where you are in the world, and the weather is very cold, maybe snowy, maybe rainy, that is going to hold you back, right? There's no getting around that, but you have to find other ways to do it. Maybe the treadmill, maybe wait until the rain stops, or maybe go out in the rain. The running surface that you're running on can hold you back from improving. Look, if you go out on the trail and you notice that your times are a little slower than they were when you were running on the road, that's just the running surface kind of keeping you in check. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to be improving, but you have to take that into account because all running surfaces are not created equal and you won't get the same metrics out of different running surfaces. What about gear? Running is always pegged as a very easy sport because you don't have to do anything to get into it. You just put on a pair of shoes and go. But what happens if your shoes aren't fitting you correctly? Or, this might be a little basic, what happens if you're wearing an outfit or a shirt or shorts that you just don't feel good in? So with that, let me know. Let me know which of those have actually held back your running at any point during your running career. For me, right off the bat, it's overtraining. I've definitely been a victim of that. Lack of sleep. I've definitely had a lack of sleep and that has held me back. Inadequate nutrition. I'm pretty sure at some point in my running career, I was not eating enough as I should in order to fuel my activities. And of course, mental blocks. They seem to come and go. I don't suffer from them all the time, but they have definitely held me back. And with that, my week of training before Boston went pretty good. Pretty easy week actually. And it started off on Monday with 5 miles, super easy, and I was running on the trails, so I was having a lot less impact than I normally would if I was running on the roads. It was actually a lot of fun. And I was testing out some new trail shoes that I'm going to be reviewing coming up, which is always a more enjoyable run. And then on Tuesday I knocked out 4.2 miles, so again, these are pretty short runs compared with what I usually do, so I've been enjoying my extra time. But 4.2 miles, started off 1 mile to warm up, then I did 400s with 400 meters recovery in between, then I cooled down for 1.2 miles, and you know, feeling pretty good. When you're only running for like 40 minutes and you're doing a few pickups, your body feels pretty good at the end of that type of run. Wednesday was 3.2 miles. It was a very easy run, but I did do 6 30-second pickups with 30 seconds recovery in between just to get those legs turning over. My favorite run of the week was on Thursday, 2.2 miles. Very easy, just going out, knocking out those solid 2 miles, feeling good, coming home, putting my feet up. By putting my feet up, I mean going to work, but still very minimal working out. Hopefully I'm just letting that taper soak everything into my body. Friday I took completely off from running because that was my travel day to Boston, and I knew that Saturday I was going to be running a little bit. So on Saturday I started off the day, I went for a run with Tracksmith. I knocked out 3.66 miles. That was a really good run. Then we all went out to breakfast together. It was a great time. It was a really solid day. But after that run in the afternoon, I then had another shakeout run with Puma, and I knocked out another 1.5 miles. Now you might be thinking, Matt, 1.5 miles, that's not much. But remember, I'd already run 3.6 miles, so I figured 1.5 miles brought it to just over 5 miles, so that was pretty good for the day. Remember, I am tapering, and I'm going to do something that I haven't done before, and that is not run the day before the marathon. So that's right, on Sunday I took another day completely off. And maybe that is not the best choice. Maybe I should go out for a mile or so, but gotta be honest, I'm not feeling the best. I'm not feeling the absolute best. My legs aren't feeling totally good, and I figured one more day of rest isn't going to kill me, so I'm actually pretty glad that I took that day of rest. In fact, I'm filming this on that day of rest, so I'm happy to just be off my feet. Anyway, don't forget to let me know about your week of running, and I think we have a shoe comparison video coming up in a couple of days, and at the end of the week I'm hoping to have my Boston race video posted, so it's going to be a good one. Alright guys, if you have made it to this point in the video, I want you to put the cloud emoji in the comments to let me know that you made it all the way to the end, because I think the Boston Marathon race day, if you're watching this when this video releases, I think it's going to be a pretty cloudy and chilly day. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.